Good evening, everyone. If you can find a seat, we're going to get started. Thank you so much for being here tonight for our final Unpacking the Book, Jewish Writers in Conversation program of the season. Love, Sex, and Jews, Writing Jewish Romance with Dahlia Adler, Lily Mey, moderated by Stephanie Budnick. This event is co-presented by the Jewish Museum, Jewish Book Council, Golda Guide, and the Ripped Bodice bookstore. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank collaborators at all organizations for their work on this event, with a special shout out thank you to Evie Sapphire Bernstein for her partnership programming the whole season. I hope some of you had a chance to visit the galleries and exhibitions here at the Jewish Museum tonight, particularly Joan Semmel in the Flesh, which is on view in our first floor gallery space through May 31st. And when thinking about this season of talks, we wanted to find a connection to the work of this trailblazing feminist painter and her diligent, lifelong investigation of the embodied female experience. The exhibition includes monumental self-images, many of which depict Semmel in the nude, alongside her works from her erotic series from the early 1970s. With this in mind, we were so pleased to partner with the Ripped Bodice Bookshop, an independent woman and queer-owned brick-and-mortar store devoted to the celebration of romance novels. Staff from the Ripped Bodice will be selling books tonight at the table near the front door, and once the talk is over, you can line up in front of the stage to get your books signed by our two authors. More copies of these titles and many others are available at their store in Park Slope and online. As always, you can watch recordings of our many past Jewish Book Council Unpacking the Book programs here on their YouTube channel. And if you want to hear about all the upcoming programs and events here at the Jewish Museum, please visit our website to sign up for our e-news. Now I'd like to just remind everyone to please silence your cell phones, and I'd like to invite to the stage Kate Schmier, Director of Publishing Relations of Jewish Book Council, to tell you a little bit more about tonight's program.
Thank you, Jenna, and good evening, everyone. On behalf of Jewish Book Council, I'm delighted to welcome you to tonight's Unpacking the Book, presented in partnership with the Jewish Museum and Golda, your Jewish lifestyle guide. Each program in this series brings together authors who approach similar subject matter through their own unique lens. Tonight, we'll explore Jewish sex, romance, and identity in contemporary life. Dahlia Adler, author of Soon by You, and Lily Mey, author of The End of Romance, have written compelling novels engaging with age-old questions. What is love? How do we find it? And what does it mean to be Jewish and in love in today's world? Their works take different paths to answering these questions, and we can't wait to hear their perspectives. And of course, you're in great hands tonight. Unpacking the Book is hosted by JBC's good friend and founder of Golda, Stephanie Budnick. Tonight's conversation advances Jewish Book Council's mission to elevate storytelling that reflects the diversity of Jewish life and experience. Cultivating a thriving Jewish literary landscape has always been a priority for us. This past year, we were proud to share the world of Jewish literature with nearly 1 million readers. Doing our work well means ensuring that Jewish writers are supported, that publishers have the tools to acquire and champion Jewish books, that bookstores and Jewish institutions have the resources to create engaging literary conversations, and that curious readers find the stories that move them. One of the most meaningful ways you can support this work is by joining our newest initiative, New Reads, a bi-monthly book subscription series that brings great Jewish literature to your door. We also share bonus books as extra gifts with our readers, including, most recently, Nicholas Lemon's Returning. We invite you to subscribe today. We hope you'll learn more about all of our efforts, including our reviews, author tours, and National Jewish Book Awards, by visiting our website and become a member to help us uplift and celebrate Jewish stories. Before I pass the baton to Stephanie, I'd like to thank the Jewish Museum, specifically Jenna Weiss, and our amazing media sponsor, Golda. And a very special thank you to Evie Sapphire Bernstein Jewish Book Council's extraordinary program director, and our board of directors for their continued support. Finally, you have the opportunity to purchase both of our panelists' books tonight and get them signed following tonight's program. You'll be among the first to purchase Dahlia Adler's book, since it doesn't officially come out until next week. And now, I'd like to introduce you to our moderator. Stephanie Butnick is the founder of Golda, a Jewish lifestyle newsletter built around one idea: making Jewish life bright, beautiful, and full of meaning. She's a trusted voice on Jewish culture and identity, and also a recognizable one. She hosted the hit tablet podcast Unorthodox for nearly a decade, and along with her co-hosts, edited the newish Jewish encyclopedia, from Abraham to Zabars and everything in between. This is her 8th season hosting Unpacking the Book. Thank you again for joining us, and please enjoy the evening.
Hello. Thank you to Jenna and the Jewish Museum for hosting us in this beautiful venue, in this beautiful space, and to Katie and Evie and the Jewish Book Council for bringing us together. I'm Stephanie Butnick, as you just heard, the founder of the Jewish lifestyle newsletter Golda and the newly launched podcast Golda Girls. A new episode drops tomorrow, so like, subscribe, share, review, everything. Tonight's conversation, Love, Sex, and Jews, Writing Jewish Romance. I have to say, I've hosted the series for 8 years. There are more sex scenes in these 2 books than there have been in the duration of my tenure here, by a lot. But I think that's so exciting, and it shows how important it is to be celebrating the full range of Jewish stories being told and all the genres they fall into. So we are going to have a lot of fun tonight. And as you've heard, you have the chance to buy these books right over there at that cute pink checkered tablecloth table over there. You buy them there, and then you get them signed here. You can get them signed for someone you love, someone you like, someone you might love. Yeah, we'll get into all of that. So let me introduce these fabulous authors. Can we do a round of applause for them first? Yes. Dahlia Adler, you are an award-winning author of romance novels for both teens and adults, a prolific young adult anthologist, and the founder of the website LGBTQReads. Your latest novel is your 16th book, and it's soon by you, and it is out this week. This is like a pre-launch event for you. Lily Mey, a translator, critic, and staff writer at The Atlantic, and author of the novels Short War, and most recently, The End of Romance, which we are here to talk about tonight. You see little index cards on your seats. They'll be coming around with little tiny pencils, very cute, and you can write questions. We'll collect them, get to them at the end of the event. But first, I get to ask a bunch of questions. And to start off, I'd love it if each of you sort of like set the scene for us. Tell us about your book. Lily, I think we could start with you, because this is like one of Dahlia's first times doing this, I feel like, for the new book. So you can warm us up.
I do want to say that having gotten to read Dahlia's book early, you want it. You will buy it.
You will.
Thank you.
So The End of Romance is, maybe it's a literary love story, maybe it's a literary anti-romance, maybe it's a literary romance. Choose your own adventure. It is the story of a woman named Sylvie Broder who has a very bad early marriage, runs away, goes to philosophy grad school, and develops a theory that the only way straight women can find happiness and liberation and fulfillment is to keep their love lives, romantic lives, sex lives totally private. She tries to live that theory out, starts out going well. There are developments.
I mean, once they buy it, they'll read it, they'll know. Dahlia, let's do this.
I can also heavily recommend this book. I loved it, even if it was a little unsettling, because, my husband is in that book. Like,
Jewish lawyers may feel targeted.
Yeah. It was unsettling, but in the best way. So, Soon by You, if I'm setting a scene, Upper West Side. It is very Upper West Side. Ariel Becker is a perpetual bridesmaid who big into hooking up, not so much into the marriage thing, sort of has been made to feel it's not really for her, whereas Judah Klein, super into the idea of getting married. He's a wedding singer, he goes viral, he is in demand, he is constantly getting set up, he feels chemistry with absolutely nobody except for her, which is sort of unfortunate because they really don't like each other and they keep clashing at wedding after wedding. And then I can't take credit for in the back cover copy, it says something like snarks turn to sparks. I think that was my editor, but that's what happens. And it's fun and it's sexy, and he decides that maybe not every single law that he has been, Jewish law that he's been holding so dearly to is right for him. And, you know, he said something about lots of sex scenes in the book, so that happens, and yeah, good times.
It's so interesting because, like, obviously these are both amazing books, both so interesting, and both, you know, recognizable, right? We have the, like, will they, won't they? We know that, but we know from that, as we say. But the Jewish context that they're both in adds a whole dimension of, like, tension and higher stakes almost. You know, we have the, okay, always a bridesmaid. We know that, but what happens when your community says everyone should be pairing up and all your friends are pairing up in their 20s, right? Like, this is sort of a universe, as you say, sort of like modern Orthodox Upper West Side, where there are expectations. So the, oh, maybe marriage isn't for me, is a little different in that universe. And that's sort of like the happily ever after. There's a different expectation there. So I was wondering if you could sort of talk about, like, layering in the Jewish stakes into those stories.
Sure. So for Ariel, or Ari, she has this feeling that maybe, like, the love marriage part isn't for her. And for Judah, who has not felt sexual attraction, he's sort of thinking past that as sort of getting married might be a given, but if I am not feeling the urge to have sex with anybody that I'm dating, how do I do the kid part? And it's sort of a given for him that that's something he wants. And he's 32, she's 29. Those are sort of very different things, you know, in modern Orthodox community than in normal life. I remember when I was like 35 and pregnant and feeling feelings about geriatric pregnancy, and my Upper West Side OBGYN was like, you're my youngest patient. But it just, it feels very different. I was one of the last of my friends to have kids in my mid-30s. And again, in the city, that's not late. It's such a skewed view from this very, very traditional, community-centric, family-centric, must have a next generation pressure. And I think all of that is infused into the pressure they feel and the pressure that other people put on them. And so, you know, sort of pairing up to let each other drop the pressure they feel and do what they want to do is incredibly important for both of them. And then also, it's just like, it's a very Jewish setting. I mean, Jewish weddings, they're Orthodox weddings, so they're dancing on different sides of a mechitza. You know, there's a wall between them on the dance floor. It's not a given that these people are going to collide, but they always find a way to collide.
Physically, they collide.
Yes, they do physically collide, but they sort of have to consciously or unconsciously seek each other out in order to do that, because they're not being seated together, they're not dancing on the same floor, but it just somehow happens. And then there's all sorts of different, I mean, there's holidays and Shabbat plays in, and there's a lot of Jewishness. But I think that deeper context you're talking about comes from a lot of the sort of traditional, communal, familial, give us a next generation kind of pressure.
And even the title. Tell us
Yes,
about
Soon by You. So I actually felt a little bit fraudulent using this title, because in what really we hear all the time in modern Orthodoxy is Im Yirtzeh Hashem by you, you know, if God wills it by you, but soon by you is sort of the common English known phrase. It was even used for like a web series, I think, that I've never seen. I wish I had seen it.
It's so good.
I have heard this, but I even wanted that in the title. You know, it's things that these two people have heard over and over and over again, and it doesn't feel like a blessing, it feels like a curse. It feels like this thing you get sick of hearing, even though everyone is ostensibly saying it to be nice and supportive, and because they want this for you, but it just becomes this burdensome phrase. And so, yeah, that's.
And Lily, you know, so much of Sylvie's mindset in your book is shaped by her Holocaust survivor grandparents, and not just what they went through, but their commitment to just living life to the fullest. And that's sort of at the back of her mind when she's in this very toxic marriage. And I feel like once you bring the Holocaust, I mean, the stakes are quite, like, it weighs on her a lot. And so I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about that element of her life.
Yes, absolutely. So The End of Romance was initially conceived as a retelling of Isaac Bashevis Singer's novel Enemies, a Love Story, which, great book. It's about a Holocaust survivor named Herman Broder who believes he has been widowed by Hitler, marries the Polish woman who saved his life, comes to New York with her. None of this is a spoiler, by the way. This happens very early in the book. Gets to
Also,
New
it's
York.
like been out for a while.
Also that. Yeah, that's true. This book was serialized in the 60s, so forget it. Spoilers. Anyway, they come to New York. He realizes he doesn't like being married to her so much. He starts a very intense affair with an Orthodox woman named Masha who wants to be his wife. Then his first wife pops back up, and Herman decides history is over. The Holocaust is so awful that it has ended history. I am free from human morality as it was known before the Holocaust. I can have 3 wives. This is fine. This only works because they're all in different boroughs. And most of the book is actually Herman thinking about his life and troubles on the subway. I'm not exaggerating. This is true. And when I read this book, I was so struck, first of all, by the lunacy of its plot, but second, by the complication that Singer gives to Herman as a protagonist. Sarah Schulman also loves this book and has written about this, and she has written about being inspired by how flawed Herman is before and after the Holocaust. It changes him, of course, but it doesn't make him better. And I was really interested in writing a story that thought about what I think is the truth, that trauma affects a person philosophically, spiritually, existentially, without making that person necessarily better. That in fact, it's not human to expect that surviving something awful must make a person better. And that is how I wrote Sylvie.
Whose last name is?
Whose last name is Broder because Herman's last name is Broder. And her grandparents, who I think they're in 10 pages of the book, but they're a lot of people's favorite characters.
They're amazing.
They're the best.
I love them. But they were my way of connecting the book explicitly to Enemies, a Love Story, even as the plot began to diverge, but also their philosophy, and they're wonderful people, to be clear. They are not Herman's. But their philosophy is, as you said, Stephanie, they're in Sylvie's head helping her, I hope.
There's also gradations of Jewishness we see in both of these stories. You know, Dahlia, we see Ariel as like the wild one of her girlfriends. She's more free with her sexuality, with her sort of identity, within the bounds, you know, and then of course we see Judah being far more observant. And I feel like that layers in a whole other, like the intra-Jewish tension ratchets everything up a few notches as well.
So there's this whole, I remember, there's this whole concept of picking and choosing. Like you can't pick and choose, you know, what you observe and what you throw away. But being modern Orthodox, I kind of feel like we have to do that all the time, especially with how many different opinions there are on literally everything. And so, and that, you know, Judah actively talks about it in the book. Like, I know I'm doing that. Doesn't everybody kind of have to do that? But he says, he's like, I know I'm being a hypocrite. I know nobody thinks this is okay, but like I am doing, you know, what I feel is right for me for how I want to live and how I want to be a Jew and how I want to be a family person. And so he's, you know, sort of figuring out within the bounds of who he is. But one thing that was really important to me, so he, you know, learns several days a week and he goes to Minyan every day and he is very observant. He's explicitly wearing tzitzit, wearing a kippah. I mean, it comes off in intimate scenes.
Which you'll have to buy the book to read.
But
on the subway home tonight.
That's a thing I actively wanted to write. And I really wanted it to be that, you know, Ariel's not the same, but she's also modern Orthodox and by choice. They're old enough to make their own decisions. If she didn't want to keep Shabbat, she wouldn't. If she didn't want to keep kosher, she wouldn't. She's making the choices she's making and, you know, setting herself up how she wants to be. And he's now making choices he's never felt free to make before and being the kind of Jew he wants to be. And they are in the beginning, it's kind of a struggle to see how they fit, and then it's sort of, well, I'm not spoiling anything, forget that. But it's, the point is sort of building themselves into who they want to be and who they want to be with each other in a way that works for them, but also you have to love and accept the other person for who they are and not want to try to change them to fit your mold. So if you're not going to be able to do that, you're not going to be a couple that can fit. But this is my first, I've written modern Orthodox short stories, but this is my first modern Orthodox romance. It was kind of a thing I didn't want to necessarily pull the outside world into, so I've written, I edged up here. So the first time I wrote a Jewish romance novel, which was young adult, called Cool for the Summer, it's mostly observant in name and there's a Shabbat dinner. And then there's Going by Coastal, which is a little bit more observant, and there's more laws worked in, and there's a little more thinking about Judaism worked in, and quote unquote reconciling being Jewish and queer. And so, there's all of that. And then this was just nope, this is what my life looked like. This is what I'm doing now. So there's also, I feel like my career has been about those gradations and edging into myself in my books. It's cool, I got there by book 16. It took me a few minutes, but we're here now. It's all good.
I love that, and we'll get more into the reception and all of the moment for Jewish romance. But I want to go to sort of the paramours. In Sylvie's case, we have Jonah, we have Robbie, who's a Christmas tree Jew. I think we can call him that.
He most certainly is.
Then we have A.B. Abraham, who's a Southern Jew. So tell us about the gradations of Jewish that Sylvie encounters along her philosophical romantic journey.
So I'm very assimilated. My family is very assimilated. On one side, on my father's side, we've been very assimilated for a long time. On my mother's side, not so much. And this is a subject, because my mother, when she married a Christmas tree Jew, and actually it's not, my family, we are not Christmas tree Jews, and Robbie's family, in fact, they're not Christmas tree Jews. They are full Christmas Jews. We, my family, I can't believe I'm saying this into a mic at the Jewish Museum. We are such Christmas Jews that although my husband is an actual living Christian, we celebrate Christmas with my family.
I think that's the Jewish American dream, maybe.
It's who could say if it's the Jewish American dream or my Jewish American mother's nightmare? But that's my Jewish experience. I do not have uncomplicated feelings about it, but the things that I have complicated feelings about are the things that I most want in my books. And so I should have spaced it out over more. So in Robbie, we get that aspect of my upbringing and my life also. It's not just my upbringing. In to A.B. I gave another, which is that part of my father's family is Southern. They lived for many generations in Richmond. There's no one left there now. But they got there shortly before the Civil War. One of my ancestors fought for the Confederacy. My dad would want me to be very clear with you, we don't really think he spoke English. It's unknown what he knew about what he was fighting for, but his descendants were proud of him. For generations, my family was proud of him, and that has weighed on me very heavily my whole life. And A.B. has that same heritage. It weighs on him so heavily that his career, which he takes very, very, very seriously, is studying Southern Jewry, teaching other people about Southern Jewry, trying to get as many Virginians, much of the novel is set in Charlottesville, also a place with Jewish things you can say about it. But much of the novel, or much of what A.B. does, is try to get Virginians to understand how complicit white Jews were with slavery, were with Jim Crow, are with racism in America, while also understanding, yes, many Jews in Virginia did have crosses burned on their lawns. And these are parts of American Jewish history that I think it really matters to engage with these things in fiction and in life, because I feel very strongly, and this is to everyone in this room, this will sound obvious, a Jewish American is as American as any other American there is. And to say that and mean it, we have to take ownership of the bad stuff. None of this is even centrally what the end of romance is about. This is just me being like, some love interest, some guys.
But I do think it's worth probing, and especially in this setting, because these are books that are going to go out into the world, and people not just on the Upper East and Upper West Side are going to read them, but Gentiles across the country should be reading these books as well. So I'm curious what you think about when you are writing in different ways Jewish stories into this more universal medium. These books are obviously for everyone.
This is the least I've ever done that, to be honest. I was working on a different book, my last YA novel, Come As You Are, and I had originally written that book and tried to get an agent with that book in 2009, 2010, and it got published in 2025. Perseverance. But I was having such a hard time revising it that I just felt this need to write something on the side. And when you're writing something on the side and you don't necessarily think it's going to get published and you're just writing for yourself, you can do whatever you want. So I did. And it's really Jewish. And there is a lot of Yiddish and a lot of customs, and I did my best with giving context, but it doesn't have a glossary, and it is, kind of talking to Jews. And I've seen the reviews, or some of the reviews, that say, had to look up too much stuff, did not finish. That's fine, you do you. But this is the most I've ever just been I really want somebody, coming from my background to feel at home reading it. I want this to be familiar. I want this to feel like it's for you. I had never, or I'd read maybe one book that felt that way for me ever. And I just really wanted to give that experience. My agent is not Jewish, and my editor is not Jewish. So, I sort of felt like if they understood what I was doing, if they got it, if they didn't need more explanation, and I would trust them to tell me, this I didn't get. And I had a non-Jewish author friend read it, and so I took their
That was
feedback.
your Gentile sensitivity reader?
Yes. That is actually exactly what she was. Thank you, Sam. But I was like, I'm going to send it through some Gentiles, and if they tell me, this is too much, this can't happen, I'll see what I can do and what I'm willing to change. And it was so minor. My friend, she writes under Isabel, was I wrote down a list of the things that I really had to look up and didn't get. I was like, thank you. I'll probably do more with some of that. I will probably ignore some of that. And that's pretty much what I did. But, it went through Patricia, my agent. It went through Vicky, my editor. They felt good about what they understood and that they got, clearly enough of the book for it to really land for them anyway. And I was like, great, then it's going out like this. How people feel about that depends on what kind of reader you are. Some people love being immersed in what feels like a new culture to them, and some people will put a book down if they have to look up 3 words. So it's probably not for you if you're the latter kind of reader and this isn't your world. But for everyone else, that's exactly who I would love to pick it up, and I hope they do.
And then are there any lines you won't cross, or writing about this community, are there any sort of guardrails you put up saying we're not going to get into this just to sort of protect your community or protect the idea of Jews? I mean, this is sort of for both of you. Where were the guardrails for you? I mean,
Being a more progressive Jew, I tend to make the communities I write reflect more me. Is that everybody I'm surrounded by? Absolutely not. It does feel less honest than what you're doing with your book, which I loved. That's for sure. There is a character who comes out in the book and everybody's chill about it. And the truth is actually, I think that is relatively similar to what would happen if that happens in life now. I actually don't think that that's a big hot button point for many modern Orthodox Jews here now. I don't want to be wrong about that, but I've had friends from seminary and camp come out and live their lives openly, and it's very cool. And so I really, I wanted queer Jews, and I want queer Jews in all my books. And so that was really important to me to do, but is that what every Jewish community of 20, 30-somethings looks like? No. And I don't generally get into politics and stuff. Mine don't necessarily look like other people who are in my social circle. I am aware of that, and yeah, I don't put much of that on the page. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I'm working in such a different context in a lot of ways. And I think one of my different contexts is that I live in DC. And so for me, to not write about politics would actually be the least reflective of my life possible. This is actually a bugbear I have, especially with literary fiction. I don't like it when literary writers write characters who don't ever talk about politics, because I think, really? Not once in a book set in the 2020s, 2010s, really? But no, for me, if I feel a subject emotionally as untouchable, or if I feel a guardrail, that means...
Go into it.
I experience that as an obligation, essentially. And that has, that was the Southern Confederate stuff, maybe we'll get into this, there's a lot of criticism of Me Too in the end of romance. That was also a topic I felt that way about. In my first book, Short War, I wrote a lot about Jews and money, about rich Jews, Jewish wealth as a social advantage. And that actually made my mom very uncomfortable. That was something that I think she thought, protective of American Jewry way. She thought maybe I shouldn't go there. I think she was afraid it could be fodder for anti-Semitic stereotype, anti-Semitic readings of the book, I don't know. But the way I experience my own personal job as a writer is that I have to go there. It is the point of me. And if people want to read it in bad faith, that's why, as I told Dahlia earlier, I have blockers in my browser, so I don't know about it.
Well, we're here in a room of good faith readers.
I wouldn't tell you guys about my browser blockers if I didn't trust you not to be the reason that I have them.
Yeah, for me, just because there's so little modern Orthodox representation, I'm sort of very conscious. And I remember this the first time I wrote a bi character in a YA in 2015, when it was still really rare, and it was sort of like, this is gonna be people's first intro to something. And when there's a lot, you can kind of show the great expanse, the spectrum of, within it. And you can have, I feel like you can show more flaw when there are more examples. But these are gonna be some of the only modern Orthodox Jews some people ever meet. And I'm just like, I want you to get the parts that are the joy and the festiveness. And that's a thing I love about writing romance. So it does give me a break that lit fic would not. So
I want to give you credit that you're not necessarily giving yourself, though. You show a lot of flaw. It's personal. You're not doing community flaw in the same way that I might be, but your characters are so interesting in this book because of their flaws.
I do like writing character flaw. That's a big thing for me. Character arc, character flaw. We were just talking about how readers feel increasingly less receptive to character flaw than maybe they used to, whether that has to do with people being given fewer chances to screw up because everything's captured on social media and it's a hard time to make mistakes. You don't get to sort of think things through necessarily. It's tough.
You would imagine you want your literary characters to make all the mistakes then, because it's like...
Well, authors do.
Yeah, it's like, let them, right? They should be able to screw up and... So something I love about both these books is they're really open about the realities of women's bodies and what it means to sort of live in a woman's body. And Sylvia in college meets her first Jewish friend who doesn't straighten her hair and has naturally curly hair, and she's just amazed by it. And Ariel has this wild hair that we sort of see ringlets bouncing when she's dancing at the wedding. And of course, there's sort of varying degrees of bustiness to be dealt with. But I sort of was reading this thing I don't often see this. When is a bridesmaid dress just too tight that it's inappropriate? And it's sort of I know it's more universal than just the Jewish community, but I love this idea that there was this authentic and honest portrayal of women's bodies.
Do you want to start? Sorry, I'm always going first.
Oh, sure, I would love to. First of all, anyone who has not been downstairs to see those Joan Semmels, You gotta. They are beautiful. We were down there just now, and I was saying to Jenna that the way that Semmel paints not just bodies but flesh, skin, and rolls is just so much more interesting than most of the artists of her generation. I'm really interested in 20th century American art. I look at a lot of it, and I have rarely seen so many pinks and blues and grays and greens and yellows and I don't know what they are, browns. All of those colors Semmel gets into her bodies. And through those colors, you can feel her looking. And that's what I wanted to do. Not, I wish I were a visual artist. I'm not. I can't look as closely as her. But I did want to look thoughtfully at Sylvie's body. I did not care very much about imagining or describing her face. And I did not care at all about what the men in the book think about her body. A question I've been asked periodically about the end of romance is, okay, Sylvie has these three, she has her husband, who I hesitate to call a love interest, but she does fall in love with him. And then these two other love interests, Robbie and Abby. And people have asked me, okay, what attracts them to her? And I don't care. That is outside the scope of the book. That is simply not my concern. What is really my concern, or was really my concern with this book, was to create a character who's comfortable in her body, who knows how to inhabit and communicate with her body, but whose attraction is certainly not a conventional, obvious sexiness. My greatest fear was writing a character who could be perceived as any kind of manic pixie dream girl, flitting around, making her mistakes, he. And so I gave Sylvie a body that does not flit, a body that no one would perceive as flitting. I wanted her physicality to be real, both in the sense of how she inhabits her body and in the sense of her having, I don't want to say a real body, all bodies are real. Not having a waif-like body, not having a body that can be ignored or brushed by. I also, I hope people in here know the work of Emma Eisenberg, who is a great literary writer. Her story collection, Fat Swim, just came out. But she also is a really intelligent writer about fat phobia in literature. She's a great analyst of how many, she's talking about literary writers, or writers of literary fiction, will describe a character's body as a way of expressing something moral, a moral judgment, often. And I, as Emma's reader, wanted to write bodies differently and more intelligently than that. I learned that really from her. She incidentally, she got a bunch of money from Anthropic because they trained AI. She's part of that big suit. They trained AI on her books. Well, let me give you an idea from Emma for what to do with your money. She got a billboard in Philly that has a fine art photographer's shot of a fat body floating above the highway. And I believe the text is, "Your gut is a terrible thing to lose," which just very Jenny Holzer. I think it's so interesting. I've gone really far afield, but Emma is also a Jewish author, so I think it's fine.
So we're back.
So Soon by You is a dual POV romance, which means you get both Ariel and Judah's perspectives. And when you do that, you kind of do have to focus on what attracts them to each other, and really see what he's seeing and see what she's seeing. I love something that I have seen discussed about romance novels, which is you'll see people complain like, how come everybody in a romance novel is the hottest person ever? But it's not that they're the hottest person ever. It's that the person who is the protagonist of that scene views them through that loving, that attracted gaze. And so they're not necessarily the hottest thing ever to everyone, but they are the hottest thing ever to the protagonist. And so, Judah and Ariel are also, to an extent, Judah especially is more conventionally attractive to a lot of people. Ariel's been told if she wants to get set up, she should lose some weight. But what I particularly love about Judah's attraction to Ari is he very specifically and explicitly finds attractive the thing that the things that she has assumed if she was ever going to go like the matchmaking route the way he has, she would have to change about herself. So, you know, when he dates, he observes everybody kind of looks the same. They all straighten their hair and they're all thin and wear these neat outfits and whatever. And she's like, I am just not that person. And if that's what you need to be set up and get guys like that, that's never going to be me. And you see when he's dating, that is what he's getting, but it isn't what he wants. But because it's what he's always seeing, because it's the molds that everybody trying to pursue relationships through that established must be in the acceptable mold way, he's never seeing anybody outside of it. And so Ari is such a different everything for him. You know, it's sort of like if you've always eaten vanilla ice cream, you have no idea how you feel about chocolate. And then one day somebody gives you chocolate ice cream and you're like, oh, this is awesome. I literally just had never had it. I would have known I liked it. This is obviously just an example because vanilla ice cream is much better than chocolate, but hopefully you understand what I mean. But
That was a hot take tonight.
Yeah, that's the wildest thing anyone's going to say up here tonight.
But so, you know, and for her, it's like what annoys her in the beginning is like he's so straight-laced and fastidious, but then there's something she finds hot about it because it sort of, you know, exudes that he has his life together in a way that she finds attractive. And so, like, yes, he has beautiful eyes and beautiful voice and whatever, but she's, you know, sort of attracted to this thing about him and the way that she can kind of undo him, which is always, like, that's my favorite pairing is, like, the messy, chaotic girl with the straight-laced guy. That was part of my impetus for writing it, is I hadn't done that since a book I self-published in 2014 when, like, self-publishing new adult was very big, and it was really fun to do. But I really missed writing that particular dynamic, so I love having it with them. I've also gone kind of off the rails, but anyway. Yes, I love that he loves these things about her that are sort of outside the lines. I mean, admittedly, I didn't go super unconventional with their hotness, to me, but
even at the beginning, he sees, it's like the second wedding he sees her at, and her hair is straight, and he was
Yeah.
like, oh, I liked it curly, and you're
Curly
like,
hair
oh,
suits
this
her
is
better,
gonna be
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
He gets
right.
her.
It's
Yeah.
it's the wildness
Yeah.
that is actually an attractive point to him, and it's the last thing he would have ever thought he would have found attractive, but it never even occurred to him to look for it.
So I want to talk about this whole shidduch universe with the matchmaker, and there's a scene in the book, there is a shidduch date that Judah is going on, and will you just walk us through this if someone's never heard that term before, just like break it down. What are these dates like? Where are they taking place? What's going on?
Okay, so I do have to, full disclosure that I'm a little bit of a fraud with this because I met my husband at my freshman orientation of college, and we started dating November of that year. So this is more hearsay and stuff. I just feel like I need to be honest about that. But a lot of them, if you are more observant, take place in hotel lobbies. I just found that fascinating when I found out that that was a place that was really common for shidduch dates, which is just dates made with a matchmaker, which can either be an official matchmaker, which is what Judah does, or that can be a term, you know, more casually thrown of just like a person sets you up. But it's kind of just a blind date. But I thought that was so interesting, like hotel lobby, because you think of hotel as like a really salacious place to meet somebody for the first time. But obviously they don't take it upstairs. But I just, you know, I'm like, how are you there and you're not thinking about this? But, you know, they're there and they're not thinking about this. And so having that setting in particular was just really fun and felt necessary to me because I'm curious if this also looks off to anybody else, this like pairing of being particularly observant and hands-off and meeting for the first time, but doing it in a hotel lobby.
And the idea is like this is a public place.
Right.
Nothing untoward is going on. 'cause
Right,
people
there's
can
eyes
see
on you, yes.
I do have to say, the Art House Hotel on the Upper West Side, a great place for shidduch date spotting. I didn't realize that I was there, and I was like, oh, there are a lot of like young modern Orthodox people here. Oh, like they're all drinking water. Oh my God, they're all on dates.
Right.
And it's like my favorite place to go because it's like, and it's so funny because it's like we're all part of this universe, this very public date they're going on, and they sort of get down to brass tacks pretty quickly in a way that like. I imagine Sylvie's dating situation is very different, right? Like you have to say up front, like, this is what I want. This is the level of religiosity I'm comfortable with. I plan on doing this, this, and this. And like,
You're not trying to waste each other's time.
Yes.
You know, there are questionnaires, like you fill out, you know, so there's all these sorts of questions that you have answered. So you are, yeah, basically like not wasting each other's time, going for exactly what you want. And so Judah's been doing this for like 10 years more. So he doesn't know that it's not always going to follow a checklist, that the person is not going to be exactly what you put down, that it can go outside that box. And so, yeah, I really loved writing that. But like, yeah, you're not realistic. Like, you're going on a ton of these dates, and he's going on a ton of these dates. You're not paying for dinner every time. So hotel lobby and like a Diet Coke is kind of, that feels right financially for Judah. He's a wedding singer.
A viral one, though.
A viral, well, he goes viral that night. So before that, he's big, but he's not that big.
Oh, these questions are so good. Lily, a lot of people have already read your books. Everyone else is going to buy it.
Thank
but,
you.
Okay, let's go general. What, if any, Jewish culture / pop culture references did you intentionally put in your book? This is to both of you.
Ooh. Well, other than the unmissable reference to Enemies of Love story.
The poppest of pop culture.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess if we're emphasizing pop, perhaps not so much. There is some Roth reading that goes on. I cannot imagine writing a book where where no one talks about politics, so I cannot really imagine writing a book that was set after Goodbye Columbus came out, where nobody reads any Philip Roth. I mean, he is so important to me, so foundational to me as a writer, as a Jew, as a person who thinks even one thought, that I feel just absolutely compelled to put him at least a little bit in my books. And it's only glancing in The End of Romance. But otherwise, I don't know, I think the central pop culture reference that is important is The Sopranos, which has a great Jewish character, so maybe you can give it to me. But that's all I got.
Okay, most of these questions contain spoilers, so I'm not reading them. If you wrote a spoiler, you'll have to buy a book and get Lily to answer. I guess you already have a book. You'll have to go talk
Ask
to Lily
me in the
after.
Q&A, yeah.
Okay.
The signing is what I meant.
So here are some vague, no spoilery questions. Okay. How do you balance the real issues and oppression men cause with pushing back against heterofatalism in End of Romance? I'm gonna do like a lightning round. Where did you learn so much about philosophy? And okay, nope, that's a spoiler. And I don't think a spoiler. Is the turtle Sylvia's grandfather or her conscience or neither? 3 very astute questions from astute readers.
Yes. About the turtle is who you want him to be.
He's on the cover.
He's on the
Will
cover.
you tell us a little bit about him?
I will. I would love to tell you about the turtle. So the turtle is Sylvie's interlocutor, let's say. The turtle is an imaginary friend who she talks to a lot when she is struggling, but it's not that she goes to him on purpose in her mind to consult. It's more that he pops up to criticize or suggest or laugh at her. He comes from a story that her grandfather told her when she was little, essentially, and then he takes on this life of his own that's somewhat outside her control. But how you want to interpret him is really up to you. Where did I learn so much about philosophy? I wrote The End of Romance when I was getting a PhD, not in philosophy, in creative writing. But it was COVID, I was a grad student, I had a lot of time, I was blowing off some of my coursework, I just could read whatever I wanted. It was in many ways, not a beautiful time in my life because it was COVID, but reading-wise, unbelievable. And I figured out what I wanted to read and reread for the book. I've always been interested in philosophy. I've always read it. I took classes in it in college. And I gave myself Sylvie's PhD, basically. And, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Will you read me the other question in the lightning round again?
Turtle philosophy.
It was a really good question, and I'm sorry I can't remember
Hold on, sorry. Oh, heterofatalism, but men being oppressive.
Yes.
Go.
Okay, here...
You have
buckle
60 seconds.
Here is what I think, and I think this very deeply. Men are not oppressive. Power is oppressive. And in heterosexual relationships, by and large, more of the power is held by men. In society, by and large, more of the power is held by men. But that does not mean that men are doomed to be oppressive. That does not mean that women are doomed to be harmed by men. And I think that if we believe or tell ourselves or convince ourselves that either of those things are true, that becomes a curse on straight women and also a curse for the culture. I actually think it's very, very, very important that straight women, I mean, all women, but straight women are by far the most implicated in this. It's the most necessary for straight women to be optimistic about men and also to hold men to the standard that an optimist would or that an optimist does. Because if the expectation is that men will use their power to oppress the women in their lives and the women they encounter, then in fact men are incentivized to do that and not necessarily punished for doing it. Versus if every individual woman whose expectation is that a man will not and should not harm her will behave to the degree that she can accordingly. And I think fundamentally, although Sylvie is oppressed by a man, and arguably by men, her father is, you can read him in many ways, but he's not nurturing. The lessons she learns about masculinity in her home are not good. It's not that Sylvie has good formative experiences with men primarily. Some of them are really, really awful. But she is at her core an optimist. She does expect and want to be treated well. And that is what I want for every woman in my life. That is what I want for my daughter, who's only 2, so we got a while. But yeah, I don't want to live under the curse of heterofatalism any more than I want to live in an oppressive patriarchy for the rest of my life, which I hope is long. How'd I do?
That was good. And we have a few minutes left, which is great. So we're going to do a few more quick fire questions. Actually, this is not a quick one, but what do you see, both of you, as the future of Jewish books, especially given the state of the world now with rising anti-Semitism? We're going there, guys. Are Jewish authors writing Jewish stories less likely to be published by a mainstream publisher?
I mean, we're published by mainstream publishers,
Yeah,
so
we are.
we feel pretty good about that. And I have another Jewish romance coming next year. So I'm excited about that. I mean, they're definitely still coming. Thank you, Jewish Book Council, for doing the work of making sure we know about which books are coming. I was actually asked this question last night. I did like an Ask Me Anything in a Facebook group, and somebody asked the same thing. But I feel very aware of a lot of Jewish books coming out, and I'm kind of like, look at who's doing them. Do I think everybody is a perfect partner for it now? No, like absolutely not. I had a friend who had to leave her editor so fast after October 7th. She just felt, this is not a fit. Put it that way. And not everyone is going to be a perfect partner for a Jewish book. That is understatement of the century, but a lot of them are, and really do want to get Jewish work out there. And I think that there is room for it in every genre. I love seeing Jewish sci-fi and fantasy come out. I mean, I also blog about books, so I tend to be very on top of things that are coming out, especially if they're queer or romance or both. But Jewish romance still very much happening. Jewish sci-fi, Jewish fantasy, Jewish lit fic, Jewish historical. It's all definitely still happening. So I hope people aren't fatalist about it. You got to keep supporting it is kind of a really big thing about it. But it's definitely still happening, and it's definitely still happening from major publishers. But also support the less major publishers that are doing it too. That's how I started. And that was really cool. And smaller publishers also tend to give you the freedom to go a little more outside the box and less everyone pleasing. I think my career would be very different if I had started with a major publisher than if I had started with a small publisher that was like, yeah, let's put 2 girls looking romantic on a cover when like nobody was doing that. So I'm here for the smaller publishers and the major publishers, and they're all doing Jewish stuff, and support that Jewish stuff. I don't know if that answers it, but I'm really into that.
Yeah, I certainly think there's a thriving ecosystem of Jewish literature in the United States, which, I mean, here we are. This is the ecosystem. It seems to me that my biggest concern about rising anti-Semitism is seeing it exploited to censor free speech and political speech across the country, to censor universities, to manipulate them, to pull their funding, to deport people for speaking their minds. To me, that anti-Semitism should be used as an excuse for that is unconscionable. I mean, horrifying, something that would have Singer rolling in his grave does have him rolling if that really happens, you know? And so as I think it's, you know, a theme is emerging, you know, as I think it's my role to be honest broadly, I also think I will write the Jewish things I want to write as the Jew that I am, no matter what. It is, you know, you don't go into literary fiction because you want to make the big bucks.
No, you do it because you want to make friends.
Yeah, that too.
Okay, who would you want to play the actors in a movie based on your books? That was a good one.
I'm god awful at that.
Oh, no, I was hoping you would
Can
be
you
good.
guys, you guys do each other's books? That'd be really fun.
I am still awful at that. I've actually always been terrible at that. I'm like really not a visual writer. If I glom onto the idea of a certain actor being attached to a character, it's like the best thing that can happen to me because I'm like, okay, I know how to describe them then. If I don't do that, forget it. I cast Sarah Waisglass. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but she's on Ginny and Georgia, and she was on Degrassi, and she's Jewish. I have definitely cast her as like 3 different characters in my books because I get really excited when that fits, but she's not an Ari.
How about Alana Glazer for Ari?
Sure.
I think she'd be good.
Does she want to make a movie?
Oh,
That'd be great. Oh, yes.
We'll talk to her. Okay, so to end us off tonight, I'd love it if each of you could just, we're in a room full of readers. They're all going to buy your book. They're all going to get it signed. But they might also want to read something else. So they'll sign up for new reads and they'll get those books. But after that, I would love it if each of you could just give us a recommendation for something that maybe that inspired you while working on this, that has inspired you in your work, something that just maybe is unexpected or doesn't get enough love, or just something you really want to champion here.
I feel bad because I think I already did this on Jewish Book Council's Instagram, but I can't talk enough about The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danon, which was so inspiring for me in writing this book because it is also a really sexy Jewish romance, but a really Jewish romance. It is so full of like philosophy and love of Judaism, and Naomi, who has not been religious, and she's a former sex worker, and she falls for a reform rabbi, and as she comes back to Judaism and finds what she loves about it and connects with it, I just think it's the most beautiful thing. And also Rosie Danon can write steam, yes she can. And so I just love that, and I read at least certain scenes, like a lot, when I was writing Soon by You. I mean, that for me is really, was a really inspirational read, like, oh, this is something people want to read. This is something you can do really well, really entertainingly, make really sexy, make really Jewish, and it will make a great book. And it was so good for me to see somebody doing that. And I don't think I ever would have thought there was a chance that this book could happen if that one hadn't first.
Can I answer 2 answers? I promise to be fast.
That's fine. That's very Jewish, too.
Oh, more books. Okay, so one answer, I mentioned Sarah Schulman already, but I do have to talk about her more because she was so important to me in thinking about how to bring Singer to now. Also, she is simply a genius. She is so smart. She writes so well across genres. Her book about the history of ACT UP New York it's called Let the Record Show. It is 700 pages of social history that I, for one, could not put down. That's the book where she talks about enemies, a love story. I also found her book, Conflict is Not Abuse, which is about what it sounds like, very influential in thinking about how do I write in a nuanced way about trauma? How do I write about a marriage that is abusive ? In a slippery, complicated, hard to identify way. I've also found it just a very useful book in thinking about conflict, thinking about politics, thinking about anything. So strong recommendation for reading Sarah Schulman. Also, Laurie Colwin, who is a literary writer who lived up here, died sadly in the 90s, is to me the rarest thing. She is a literary novelist who does happiness. There are not that many. I think the literary love story isn't in a great place broadly. the literary love story that moves towards happiness is extremely, extremely rare. I don't know if the ending of the end of romance is happy. That is another thing you have to decide for yourself as the reader or feel for yourself. But I certainly wanted the novel to show a character looking for happiness. I wanted the novel to have a drive towards happiness. Laurie Colwin's books really have that. Also conveniently to have happy in the title, happy all the time and family happiness. Great German Jewish stuff too. Read those.
Amazing. Well, thank you both, Lily Meyer, Dahlia Adler, A Night of Romance and Non-Fatalism. Thank you to the Jewish Book Council, Jewish Museum, Ripped Bodice. Get the books, get them signed. Thank you for your amazing questions.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Oh, my God.
Fabulous moderating.
Thank you.
Thank you.